is at its end. What a fleeting moment it was. Birth, pursuit, endless running, and then death. The current resting place of my mangled body is somewhat reminiscent of where it all started. Yes. Before I tell you the story of how I died, I must first explain how I came to be. I awakened as my body took shape in the fires of my creation. I was deaf, mute and blind, which made the heat so much more intense. No other senses to focus on, no input to distract my mind from the licking flames, no outlet with which to express myself. But somehow I knew it was necessary. I believed I was being made for a purpose. Little did I know, I would be born into a short, miserable life. After a while, the heat began to subside. Slowly, the nerves of my roughly formed body let up on their constant screaming and pain. I heard the rusty sound of a door creaking open, and someone lifted me up from my place. Enormous fingers pressed small holes into my soft face, and suddenly, I could see. A large hand withdrew from my left eye before returning to insert my right eye. It was an old woman. I knew she was my mother from the very beginning. Being the first image I saw, I felt a warm familiarity with her, and she smiled at me, an inviting smile. I can tell she'd made the expression countless times during what could only have been a long and happy life. Her next act was to use a small wooden utensil to cut a curve into my face, forming my mouth. It was then that I took my first breath. The cool air of the room filled my chest. I could feel the atmosphere inside me, taste the faint aromas and flavors of the forest outside the small log cabin into which I was born. Just as I started to survey my pleasant surroundings, imagining the possibilities of my new life, my eyes caught onto my mother's face, noticing an unexpected change. I witnessed her expression twist from its sweet, kind form into an alien one. A bizarre, wanton lust crept over her, transforming her entire countenance. Her wrinkled lips took on a sheen, glistening as a cracked, discolored tongue emerged and slid across the shifting landscape of her mouth in anticipation. I knew what this meant. She intended to eat me. My own mother, the very woman who brought me into this world, wanted to eat me as soon as I was born. So I ran, as fast and as far as I could. Everything was so new. My feet and legs fractured and crumbled as they carried me away to what I could only hope was safety. I saw a light coming in from a door and headed there, slamming myself into it and barely nudging it open. My heart sank when I saw another gigantic human, a man. By then, I'd already lost my faith in humanity. I wasn't surprised when he turned his face to me with the same hideous expression as my mother, his long arms outstretched. He came after me as my mother emerged from the cottage door, joining the chase. So again, I ran. My small, fragile body seemed capable of unlimited speed and endurance. The rush of the pursuit flooded my simple biology with excitement, which soon overtook the desperation and disappointment of the betrayal of my birth. I much preferred the exhilaration over the despair. I ran so fast that I looked back and could see my wicked creator and her suitor had given up their chase. I thought to myself, well, that's no fun. I continued to run, encountering many other bizarre creatures. A large, pink, loud and hairy thing, an even larger animal with black and white spots, and the tallest of all, a towering animal with a stunningly beautiful coat of speckled brown and white fur, underlain with a horrifyingly powerful musculature and large black hooves. Each one of these monsters exhibited the same mindless need to consume my flesh. To my own shock and amazement, I was able to easily outrun every one of them. My little, malformed body somehow gave me the ability to move as fast as the wind. The whole ordeal made me wonder why. Why is my existence only valuable to them in my death? Why does everything want to kill and eat me? Do they even know that I am a living thing just as they? I resolved to survive no matter what, that my speed granted me the ability to escape any danger. Nothing could touch me. That's when I came upon a new, confusing thing. It was a body of clear water, moving so fast that it made me feel an innate sense of imminent danger. I was intimidated, at a loss, vulnerable for the second time in my short life. I reached out my crumpled hand to touch it, and watched my flesh get swept away in its torrent. I slowly retracted my blunted stump of an arm, staring at the bubbling remnant of what was once a decently functioning hand. This was a thing I knew I could never outrun. I turned and was startled by a majestic creature standing by my side. It towered over me. It had beautiful red fur and a sharp snout, with a black nose. The creature looked me over thoughtfully, noticing my befuddlement. It spoke to me, saying that the thing we were looking at was called a river. It also told me that it was a fox. The fox was the first thing that didn't try to chase me, so I didn't feel like I needed to run. Its face was not very expressive, but it naturally carried a look of serenity. With a faint smirk, the fox turned to me, asking if I wanted to cross the river. I looked out to the wilderness on the other side, and imagined the possibilities that might be found out there, far away from the land of my birth. It was the one impassable barrier that stood between me and true freedom. I didn't know what I was capable of, but I desperately wanted to discover it. Without turning back to him, I said yes. The fox spoke again.
"Jump on my back, and I'll take you across."
Something about his tone made me suspicious. I knew it was foolish to be so trusting, but I'd keep my guard up. The fox had a long tail, far removed from the mouth that he would eat me with, if he were so inclined. I jumped up and latched onto the bushy fur of its tail, as he wasted no time leaping into the river. As the fox swam along, I could see his massive muscles losing speed gradually. He began to struggle to stay afloat and yelled to me that I would need to move up to his back, or else I'd fall off. I didn't want to do it, but I felt the water soaking into my body. I had no choice. I watched as the water encroached upon the edges of his powerful back, reaching all the way to my feet. My heart raced as parts of me began to flake away and dissolve into the rushing waters. Flailing in the rapids, he seemed to panic as he shouted that I was getting too heavy for his back and needed to jump onto his nose. I hesitated, knowing that his large, fanged mouth would be uncomfortably close by. But then I remembered my incredible speed and agility. I knew that if it came down to it, I'd be able to run from danger no matter what. The fox arrived at the other shore and ascended the steep, soaking wet bank. By then, I was a mess. I had lost an eye, and much of my body was deformed beyond normal function. I was being held together by nothing more than my will to live. As soon as the fox's tail rose up from the water, I felt his large head drop down, making me brace myself before he swung his nose back upward. With only one good hand left to hold on, the violent motion sent me hurtling into the air. The world spun around me, making me dizzy and nauseous. The one image I could decipher in the swirling mass of color was the fox's face, with his mouth gaping open, waiting for my fall. I felt the searing pain of my body's destruction in his powerful jaws, as they snapped shut over and over again. I really thought I could do it. I thought there was no way that anyone, not even the sly fox, could catch me. I'll never forgive myself for my hubris. That was the end of me. It was the end of the gingerbread man. Thanks for listening, my friends. If you enjoyed the video, please share, like, and subscribe, and check out my channel for more like this. I'm Mr. X, and may your nights be full of dreams.